Released in 2009 for the Nintendo Wii, New Super Mario Bros. Wii was the next step for the insanely popular 2D platformer into the new generation of video games and consoles. With its 9 worlds and many secrets, casual gamers and serious gamers alike loved this game. And as with any other popular game, people would start to gain interest in beating it as fast as possible. For a casual gamer, beating this game entails going through all 8 worlds, beating all of the levels and fighting Bowser at the end of the 8th world. After beating World 8's castle, the 9th world is unlocked. But in order to play the levels, you need to unlock every star coin in each world. Level 1 is unlocked for having all star coins in World 1, Level 2 for World 2, and so on. However, for the more adventurous, the game is a much easier feat. Each world has a secret exit, sometimes multiple. These exits take you farther in the world, or sometimes to a new world entirely. The fastest and longest ones are the cannons in World 1 from World 1-3, the cannon in World 5 from the Ghost House, and skipping the majority of World 8 with the secret in Level 8-2. With all of these skips combined, this is the fastest way to beat the game. But how did runners get this route to such an optimized state? Well, today we will find out, as we go over the world record history of New Super Mario Bros. Wii AnyPercent. The first person to follow this route goes by the name of MWL on the Speed Demos Archive forums. He claims to have beaten the game in 45 minutes on November 22, 2009, just a few weeks after the game's release. There is no footage of this run, mainly because back in 2009, people didn't record their speedruns that often, especially of a brand new video game. He says that it can be reduced to around 35 to 40 minutes with some more practice, but sub 30 is unrealistic. After this post, no full runs were posted, mainly optimizations to single levels to make them faster, and routing for 100% and canonless. After the initial hype died down, so did the forums, and it wasn't until May 29, 2011, a whole entire 2 years after the first run, that the first recorded single-segment speedrun of New Super Mario Bros. Wii was uploaded. As you can probably guess, this run was done by RakerZ in 27 minutes and 8 seconds, 3 minutes faster than what MWL said was unrealistic. However, with many small optimizations being done over the past 2 years of the game's release, RakerZ was able to pull this run off. This run didn't have a ton of mistakes in it, but the movement throughout the run was overall sloppy and was not extremely optimized. Little mistakes like this were scattered all over the run and ultimately led to the low 27 that he got, as well as the lack of knowledge of the game and optimizations at this time. It is also worthy to note that even at this primitive stage of the game's release, 5-4 skip was known about. This prevents Mario from having to ride the raft across the level, which stops when 5 entities are on the platform, including coins. This run was extremely important as it set the very first basic route for this game. For example, getting the propeller in 1-1, damage boosting in 8-1 besides the intentional hit at the beginning, and getting a propeller again in World 8 Airship. This run would stand for 7 months, until on December 30th, RakerZ would clock in with a 26 minute and 1 second time, beating his old world record. How did RakerZ beat his time by a whole entire minute after already doing what was seen as impossible 2 years ago? Well, the answer is nothing specific. There were absolutely no tricks or skips discovered in this 7-month period. The only thing that improved this run was more optimized movement that was discovered over the 7 months that he didn't PB. The only relatively major change was that he got a mushroom in 8-7 rather than 8-2, as it made getting through the secret faster. This run had a notable mistake in World 5 Ghost House and an accidental spin which cost him a sub 26, but despite these mistakes, he still ended up with a good PB for the time that would go to set the standard for the rest of the community. This record stood for the next few months, until once again RakerZ would beat his own time with a 25:31. This run's movement was much better overall than the last one. His 5-2 was a little shaky, and the end of World 8 Castle was shaky as well, but every other level was par or better than par, according to him. Finally, in October of that year, RakerZ broke the sub 25:30 barrier with a 25:28. This run was substantial because it was the first run to do 5-3. You see, in World 5, after 5-1 there is a split off, where you have to do 5-2 or 5-3. It was unknown which was truly faster, and 5-2 was significantly easier, so for years, runners opted to do 5-2. However, after a lot of testing, RakerZ found out that it was about 3 seconds faster to do 5-3 as long as you were within 8 in-game seconds of a good 5-2 ending time. Other than this, there were no other strats added in this run. 5-3 saved the time he needed to PB, and the run was very similar to his last. He said that he could save about 10 seconds in World 8 Castle, but that's the last we would hear from RakerZ in the NSMBW community, and the run would stand for the next 3 years. After the disappearance of RakerZ, two new runners were on the rise. Their names were Green Uprooter and Ochgard. Green Uprooter started speedrunning in October of 2015 with NSMBW and other games like Super Paper Mario and newer Super Mario Bros. Wii. As for Ochgard, more on him later. On March 5th, 2016, Green Uprooter got a 25-26. While there is no footage of this run, it is widely accepted that this run is legitimate, as he had PBs recorded before, and he would go on to beat this time with footage. This world record is not official and cannot be found on the internet, but I have decided to include it as it was definitely a huge moment for the game and the community, as it was the first time that RakerZ's 25-28 was beaten in around 3 years. Back to Ochgard. Ochgard started speedrunning around 2015 with games like Mega Man Legends and Crash Tag Team Gaming. However, he did not pick up on NSMBW until about early 2016. He was interested in NSMBW because the world record was about 3.5 years old and no active runners at this point had had a 25. After Green had gotten his 25-26, Ochgard tied RakerZ's 25-28.
Did you get global?
Yeah.
Guys, you're gonna laugh at this. You guys are gonna laugh at what just happened.
Or can you see my message?
Did you just?
I just tied Riker Z.
You're gonna tie. You're gonna tie. Yeah, you tied.
He was showing himself as a serious contender for the any percent world record. This would be the first time that there has been any competition in any percent. And one day, it finally happened. Ochgard got a 25-23. Unfortunately, there is no recording of this run, but it happened on April 25th, 2016. This run was apparently worse overall than his tied run of 25-28, but he had a better World 8 castle, which gave him the time save he needed to defeat Green. For the first time ever, RakerZ was in 3rd place. This competition brought many of the top runners in the current day to the game, but unfortunately, this competition would not last very long. Just the next day, on April 26th, Ochgard would record a 25-22, a 1-second PB in just one day. This run had a worse early game than his previous world record. However, his mid-game and late game were much cleaner than his last run, except for Airship and 8 Castle, which were good. But he didn't just PB 2 days in a row. On the very next day, April 27th, he got a 25-19. This was a great run for the time. There were no major mistakes in this run and nothing that he could pick out as bad. There was definitely small time saves throughout the run, but nothing major like all the previous runs it had. From here on out, any percent would be a very optimized run. Oh, and it's also important to mention one thing. This is not the first time he will get a PB multiple days in a row. On August 9th, almost 4 months since his last PB, he got a 25-14. This run was very similar to the last, with very few mistakes throughout, but time saves were definitely possible. The community was seriously starting to consider that sub 25 could be possible, but it would take an extremely good run with essentially no mistakes to be able to pull off. But he wanted it. He improved the world record again on August 16th, only about a week after his last PB, with a time of 25 minutes, 12 seconds, and 8 milliseconds. This run had a notably sloppy 5-3, but the last 3 levels of the run had time save he needed to shave off 2 seconds from his previous world record. After this run, Och would continue to PB for another 2 days in a row. The next day, on August 17th, he got another 25-12, this time a 25-12.7, only PBing by 1 millisecond. This run had another sloppy level, this time 8-2, but the rest of the run kept it alive. On August 18th, again, the day after, he got another 25-12, and this time it was a 25-12.1. This run got the 8-2 time save he had from last run, but the rest of the run was sloppy all around, and it landed him a third 25-12. Sub 25 was getting closer and closer, little by little, but it was seeming more and more possible each day, and he solidified that with a 25-10 on September 4th, 2016. This run was extremely close to his previous PB, but he golded 8 Castle and was able to PB by 2 seconds. The next day, September 5th, he would find himself with a 25-09. The beginning of this run was nothing crazy, but he golded both 8-1 and 8-2 and held on for the rest of the run to solidify the first ever 25-0x. A month would pass until he would PB again, and on October 2nd, he got a 25-06.
Nice job.
And there's one very important aspect about this run. It was the very first RTA run to do 5.56. 5.56 is the optimal in-game time to beat the Fortress in World 5. See, the Fortress in World 5 is cycle-based. Each side has spike walls that move back and forth on specific cycles, and before 556 was RTA viable, the optimal cycle was 546. However, back in early August, Otchgard was able to pull off the cycle RTA in a more viable way than the TAS strat, which had been known for years.
Oh my god. Did you get it?
Yep.
You did?
Yes.
Oh my god.
The trick was still insanely difficult, but it was one of the first strats to be found in this game that saved a significant amount of time that wasn't simple movement changes. While this wasn't insanely viable yet, it was definitely possible and a step in the right direction for sub 25. Back to the 2506. Again, this was the very first run to have 556 in it. There were no huge mistakes in it or specifically bad levels, just overall sloppiness in some spots. Nothing too major, and nothing that would be too hard to save time over. And not too hard it was, because you guessed it, the next day on October 3rd, he got a 2504.
World record yet?
2504.
Correct.
This PB had some evident mistakes that would become a meme throughout the community. His in-game time for the Piranhas in World 5 was 90, and a good time is generally 93, but a time like that in a world record caught on in the community. He also lost 3 seconds in 8.7, not a level that you usually lose time in, as the majority of it is an auto-scroller. And this is where the record stood for almost 2 months. He was only 5 seconds away from a sub 25, and he knew very well that he could get it. And on November 23rd, 2016, it had finally happened. Otchgard completed New Super Mario Bros. Wii Any % in under 25 minutes with a final time of 24 minutes and 58 seconds. The run started off pretty average, and as he got into World 5, he got ahead. He successfully performed 556 and got the time save in 8.7 to get 5 seconds ahead. And on world record pace, he clutched it out and finished the run. This was a huge moment for Otchgard and the community, and this was the god run for the time. This run was seen as absolutely untouchable by anyone, including Otchgard himself. And it was. This run stood for 15 months, but unfortunately, this is the last world record we would see from the man himself. In this space of time though, on January 8th, 2018, a new strat was found by Green Uprooted that would change NSMBW speedrunning forever. What exactly is going on here? How was this discovered? Well, one day, fellow NSMBW speedrunner I Love SMB told Green Uprooter that you can defeat Bowser Jr. in World 4 by just jumping onto his head rather than using the bumper car. With this knowledge, Green theorized that you could do the same thing with Bowser Jr. in World 8's airship. The only thing that disproved this theory at first was that Mario could not fit above Bowser Jr.'s head like he could in World 4. However, after trying the trick for a while, Green managed to get it in the proper spot and ground pound at the perfect time to perform the trick. So how exactly is this possible? Well, first, this is just barely possible because of the clown car's oscillations up and down throughout the fight, narrowing and widening the space above Bowser Jr. Second, if Mario ground pounds, his model takes up less space. And finally, Propeller Mario's floating state is cancelled when he runs into the clown car, allowing you to input a ground pound at the height needed to just barely slide in between the clown car and the ceiling to stomp on Bowser Jr.'s head. So, easy time save, right? Well, not exactly. As stated before, this trick was barely possible and extremely difficult to pull off. Runners at the time exchanged clips of them successfully performing the trick, but a big issue was that no two hits were the same. There was no specific visual or audio cue at the time that runners could use. It was simply seen as luck by the community if anybody was able to perform this trick. Another issue was practicing it, as no practice ROMs exist for the game. In order to practice, runners would have to go through the whole entire level, getting the checkpoint first, and then fighting Bowser Jr. with a bombless attempt. Then if the trick fails or is completed, to do it again they would have to restart the level and start from the checkpoint. This meant that a majority of runners' practice towards bombless was spent doing the second half of Airship, watching cutscenes, and not being able to practice the actual trick itself. Another thing that was theoretically possible but extremely unlikely to happen was a trick called Double Bombless. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's bombless but done twice. This would save about 20 seconds of Bowser Jr. throwing fireballs down from his clown cart compared to the 13-second single bombless saves. Again, this was theoretically possible. If you could do it once, you could do it twice, but runners at this time could barely even do it once. So it was seen as virtually impossible. It's also worthy to note that triple bombless is possible, but it loses time as you can't utilize Bowser Jr.'s bomb. Fade was a previously unknown person from England without any speedrunning experience before coming into NSMBW. He started playing the game sometime around late 2017, early 2018. He grinded for multiple hours a day for the first few months of him speedrunning and would go on to make a name for himself in the community as a serious contender for world record when on February 10th of 2018 he got a 25-24, an extremely respectable run for the time. Some things to note are that this run does 5.2 and 5.46 rather than 5.3 and 5.56, but these strats were usually not done until a player got a low 25. Bombless was also not attempted in this run. It was a pretty average run for him, but nothing insanely good or bad to point out about it. Over the next few weeks, he lowered his time and eventually got a 25.02 on March 3rd, 2018. A huge improvement for just a few weeks. He was now only 4 seconds away from the world record and 5 seconds away from beating it. The community tuned into his streams as they waited for him to inevitably bop Archguard, and it finally happened. On April 13, 2018, Fade not only beat Archguard, but blew his record out of the park with a 24.45.
I did it! I did it! I did it. Oh my fucking god, I did it.
One thing to note is that this run did not do 5.56, which is surprising for the amazing time that this got. But how did he get such a low time? Well, remember the trick I mentioned before? Double bombless? He was able to pull it off. Not only was this the first time that double bombless was done in a RTA run, but it was the first time double bombless had ever been performed by a human being. Why would he go for such a difficult trick in a run? Well, luckily going for bombless doesn't lose any time when comparing against a run that doesn't do bombless. So runners will always go for it, but not succeed with it often. In this run, it saved him 13 seconds. He was now 20 seconds from his previous PB of 25 minutes and 2 seconds and was able to clutch it out until the very end of the run. This was not only insane, but it was considered near perfect. The only thing that could have made this one better was 5.56. But that would be so hard to pull off in conjunction with double bombless that it almost wouldn't be worth it to grind for. What does all of this mean? It means Fade needs to double bombless to PB from here on out, and it had only been performed by a human once. According to Fade, this PB wasn't as good mentally as you might think. Again, this run's success was largely due to double bombless, and at the time this trick was seen as all luck. Even with a huge world record, Fade didn't feel like he earned it or deserved it because he simply got lucky. He still thought that Arch was miles ahead of him skill-wise, and this really got in his head for the next few months. After this few months, Fade finally manages to beat his time with a 24.40 on September 2nd, 2018.
Is this it? That's what I'm talking about, boys.
Almost 5 months after his previous world record. This run was near perfect. It got everything. It got 93 piranhas, it had a perfect 5.3, it had double bombless, but again, it did not have 5.6. Fade failed to get it, and Fade still had more time to save. So now, shaving 5 seconds off of an already perfect run, now the only major time save he had was 5.56. And at the time, this trick was still insane, but luckily, while playing around with the strat, Fade found himself a new way to do 5.56 that made it much easier. The new method would involve walking off of this wall near the top of the stage, making it much easier to spin off of the next few platforms. This trick was making 5.56 much more consistent for runners, and they were able to get it in many more runs than before. Another consistent strat that was found was for bombless. This new bombless strat was found by runner the Coding Boy, and it is called Coding Bombless, named after him. It involves getting a bombless hit on the first Bowser Jr. cycle, also known as first hit bombless. With Bowser Jr. always starting at the same spot in the sky, runners had a clear visual and audio cue for when to jump and when to spin to get the proper spot above Bowser Jr. But even with this new strat, this trick was still insanely difficult. Putting this all together in a run would still be the biggest feat in the entire game. Fade would, after a short break, go back to grinding any percent for his ultimate goal of 24 3x. He would have countless failed attempts, losing run on 5.56 and bombless a lot, but he persevered through all of the pain and suffering that any percent gave him through the past year of his life. And then finally, on March 9th, 2019, this happened.
I might just do a no reset, honestly. I know that's probably not a good idea at all, but... Go. Let's go. Let's go, boys. Let's fucking do this. Come on. Let's go, let's go, let's go. We fucking did it. Let's go, 3x. Come on, let's go. Fucking did it. 3x. There you go. And that is why this category is mine.
This run had everything. It had the new 5.56, which actually gave him a 5.57 in game time, and double bombless with coding bombless at the beginning. Everything about this run was perfect. It was only 8 seconds off of his sum of best. Finally, a run with every new optimization had been completed by Fade Vanity. He was absolutely untouchable, and nobody was anywhere near him. And that is where the world record stands, 24 minutes and 34 seconds. Over the period of 10 years since the game's release, the world record has fallen over 26 minutes. NSMBW has had only 4 confirmed runners hold a world record, and each had their own era of domination, from Raker Z to Green Uprooter to Ochgard, and to the current reign of Fade Vanity, the any percent world record holder. As for the future, Fade wants a 24-2x and is going for it over on his Twitch channel. His link and everybody else who had a world record and helped make this video possible will be in the description. And if he doesn't achieve it, maybe a new runner will emerge from the shadows and reign supreme like the other 4. I believe that this game can go farther than everybody believes, and Fade will continue to drop his time over the next few months or years. But who knows where any percent will go from here? Well, only time can tell.